fitness and strength aside, how you actually perform on competition day is going to be largely determined by the state in which your body turns up with. And one massive thing that can aid you on competition day is doing a proper carb loading protocol in the 2 to 3 days leading up to it. Now in here, I'm going to explain exactly what carb loading is, why it's useful, and how you can do it practically and easily before your next event so you can perform as well as you physically can. Now, this presentation is actually a little bit ironic because I did a recent carb load for my Tough Games event and it went horribly wrong. The reason it went wrong is because I'm now diabetic. So carb loading, I've learned, doesn't really work for me. But prior to this, I have done many successful carb loads before I was diabetic, and they've all worked absolutely wonderfully. I often have comments on comp day like, oh my gosh, you're just a different animal. Like, what the hell? I didn't know you could do that. Or you're so strong, you turn into like a different person in a competition environment. And one massive reason is because I am properly fueled and maximally loaded with carbohydrates. So my performance is so much better at a comp setting than it is at a normal training session because I do this protocol leading into it. So a carb load is a nutritional strategy, so a strategy that involves eating, perfect, where you maximize your muscle glycogen stores prior to your event, your competition, or your race. So you eat your carbohydrates, and I'll tell you exactly what to eat and when to eat them soon. This then fills up your muscle glycogen. So your muscle glycogen is a fuel source that sits in your muscles that we use for fuel during competitions or during exercise. So think of this as your fuel tank, and the more petrol that you put into it leading up to your competition, the more energy and the more fuel you have available for you on that day. Typically, we sit at around 70%, the kind of average trained individual. So we're really looking to top this up to 100% or as close as we can so that we have 30% extra fuel, if you like, to use on your competition day. So it's really that simple. You eat more, puts more fuel in the tank, you've got more available for you. So what is the benefit of doing this? It is very simply that the more muscle glycogen you go into the event with, the more fuel you have available, and therefore the better you are able to perform. When we're at rest, so me right now sat down not doing anything, my predominant fuel source for respiring, my heart rate, my talking, my little bits of movement is majority from fat deposits in my body. When we're doing moderate exercise, it shifts and it's a mix of fat and sugar being glucose being muscle glycogen, what we're talking about. But when you're doing high intense activities, which is what you would be doing at a competition, or you're doing very long duration work, something that is hard to do, the primary fuel source that you are using, it's almost 100%. It's not quite, this graph isn't quite right, but it's almost 100% for your muscle glycogen. And from a high intense activity, it can deplete quite quickly. Even after one event, you can be down about 30%. So even during your competition, you still want to be applying this principle so that you keep your stores topped up. So how much are we actually talking? This is what the kind of gold standard protocol is. You do this up to 3 days out. So if your competition was on a Saturday, you'd be starting this around on a Thursday. You'd be having 10 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of your body weight. Most of these carbs would be from low fiber foods, so things like breads, pastas, rices, not from things like broccoli or vegetables, which means if you're a 70 kilo athlete, you would be needing between 700 and 840 grams of carbohydrates per day. And this should be done in line with an exercise taper where you don't really do much exercise in the days that you carb load. And that means that everything that you are eating, you are storing as glycogen and you're not burning it off in your exercise sessions. Now, anyone who has tracked their food or has an understanding of how much this actually equates to, it is huge. It is astronomical. And yes, if you're an elite athlete and you were used to doing a carb loading protocol and you've done this several times over leading into a competition, maybe you would be able to eat this. However, for the average Joe, for me especially, there is no way I would be able to eat this amount of carbs in a day and be able to function. So I have a slightly different protocol that I advise my athletes to do. Firstly, I start it not 3 days out, but my proper load is 24 hours out. And then I maybe do a little bit the day before, so 48 hours. Personally, I find trying to eat this amount of carbohydrate for too many days, especially if your comps are 2-day comps, so you're going to be eating increased carbohydrates, then I start to not feel very good within myself. So I think the sweet spot is really go for this the day prior and then maybe touch on it the day before that. I think between 6 and 8 grams per kilo of body weight is much more realistic. This will probably still be a significant increase on what you're already doing, but it's not that astronomically high target, which seems very out of reach. Still keeping in line with low fiber carbs. They're the quickest to consume, they're the easiest for you to eat. And when we consume carbohydrates, for every 1 gram of carbs that we eat, 3 grams of water attaches to it. So that's already a lot of extra weight that we're going to be carrying from eating carbs. And when you eat fiber, it does the same kind of thing. So we kind of want to minimize the additional weight that we're putting into our body by keeping things in the low fiber, high glycemic index, those type of foods. The foods that normally you restrict a bit, the ones that this day, go for it. So this means a 70 kilo athlete would be needing between 420 and 560 grams of carbs, which I think is much more realistic. And yes, this should still be in line with an exercise taper. So this is when all of the hard work, all of the training, all of the strength, all of the fitness, that is all done. There is nothing that you can do in the 2 or 3 days prior to your event that is going to make you physically stronger or physically fitter. Your task is now to get your current body, whatever you've trained it to be, in the best possible shape that you can. So this isn't in this video, but it's gonna be well hydrated, well rested, ideally injury free, and loaded with carbohydrates. That's the best thing that you can do for your body in those couple of days out. So this is what I actually did. Like I said, I will hold my hands up and say, this did not work for me because I'm now diabetic. So carb loading is just a whole different ballgame and I'm gonna have to figure it out. But this is what I would have normally eaten in the competitions before I was diabetic, and this is something that works really well for me. You're gonna have to find your own foods that you like. I chose foods that I know sit well with me. I really enjoy, I look forward to them. They were easy to eat, they weren't too expensive. This all works for me. So it's down to you to find your own methods. But just to give you an idea, I started the day with a protein shake. I put a really big banana in there. So I loaded this up and worked out it's about 45 grams of carbs. This is my breakfast. This is actually normally what I would eat for breakfast anyway, because normally I go and train. So I have carbohydrates before I train. However, I wasn't training in these days because I was on my taper. So we had a carby breakfast, nothing too crazy. And then I didn't do anything. Pretty soon after that, I had a snack, and this snack, I had some yogurt, granola, maple syrup, and berries. Now, normally, if I had a snack in the morning, I would have the yogurt and I'd have the berries, but I wouldn't have the granola and the maple syrup. So that was an additional amount of easy sugar that I could add to this dish, which loaded up the carbohydrates. Then I had another snack, and I had a bagel. For me, bagels, they're pretty high in carbs. Like if you compare a bagel to a normal slice of bread, it's like, whoa, what is in them? But they're loaded, they're easy for me to eat. Easy to track, done. Then we got to lunch. Again, I had another bagel. Just by adding in, I don't normally eat bagels, but on a carb load I would. And just by adding these 2 bagels into my day, I increased my carbohydrate intake by 100 grams, which is huge. If you're aiming for 400 and you probably normally around 250, adding on 100 from 2 bagels, you're almost there already. So it's very easy to do this if you can find some dense foods that you really enjoy. After lunch, we had lunch pudding, obviously. A couple of biscuits, they're easy 20 grams. They got deleted, was no problem at all. By the time I got to dinner, I was feeling pretty full. I had half an almond croissant, would never normally have this at 4 p.m, but whacked that one in there. And then my dinner was meant to be a pack of tortellini. I'd already bought it, was in the fridge, but I had a couple friends message saying they wanted to go to the pub for dinner and I couldn't resist. So this was the best thing I could scrounge from there. I had some chips, some corn. I know I said avoid veggies, but there really wasn't much, and corn is relatively carby. And then these bao buns, you've got the white, easy digestible carbs here. So I ended up with about 405 grams, which is about right for my body weight. So here are some important considerations that you should do before you try this. First one is do not get caught up on your health. This is not meant to be a healthy day, and it's okay. You're doing this one day in the year or one day every now and again before your competition. This is not your normal diet, and having one day where you go and eat donuts and you eat lots of bread and pasta and you go a bit crazy is not going to negatively affect your long-term health. It's not going to negatively affect your body composition. One day in a generally good lifestyle is okay. So don't get caught up on the fact that this isn't a healthy day. That's fine. It's okay. Kind of in sync with this, you don't need to be worrying about your veggies. Scrap them. They're going to be taking up space in your stomach that you don't need them to take, and you'd rather be having a piece of bread, honestly. Eat foods that sit well with you in high quantities. I choose bagels because they're dense and I love them. Other people choose other things and that's fine. You do what you know you like and that you can eat in a decent quantity and not feel sick. Like I said, you're going to be heavier. 1 gram of carbohydrates in your body connects to 3 grams of water. So you're going to physically be heavier, but it's not from body fat. I would never bother weighing myself after a carb load because it would mess with my head to see that number on the scales, but also it really doesn't matter because it's going to be gone soon anyway. So if you do weigh yourself and you're sat heavier, that's why. Don't stress. Try and avoid too many fats. In my carb load that I did where I had that bowl of chips, I really regretted it because they were oily, and the combination of a high carbohydrate meal and a high carbohydrate day with fats made me feel a bit sick. It's not something I normally do, and I definitely wouldn't do it again. So I would try and avoid greasy foods if you can. Don't worry about your protein. I included the grams of protein I ate in those meals just because it interests people. I wasn't tracking it. And to be honest, lower protein is going to leave you more space for carbohydrates because proteins fill you up and leave you fuller for longer. So reducing those on these days, completely fine. It's not going to hurt anything in terms of your body comp or your recovery, but it is going to leave you space to put more carbs in. And that's the real focus of these 2 days. Don't worry about being perfect. Just eat more. If you're thinking, I've never tracked my food, I've got no idea what carbs are in what food, just consciously try and eat a little bit of extra carbs with each meal and put some carby snacks in and you'll be fine. We're never going to get caught up by being perfect and let that stand as an obstacle for us moving forwards. Just try and be a little bit better than you were and you will notice a performance improvement. Alrighty guys, that is it. Hopefully you have learned something today about carb loading. If you ever have a question, then my inbox is always open. You can message me on coach_Briscoe and shoot me a question, or if you would like any information about coaching, then you can just message me the word athlete and I'll send you through some info.